Dear members of the CMU community, faculty, students, alumni, and friends, I hope you'll allow me to read this, otherwise we're going to break down, I think. A number of years ago, I was invited by a musical colleague at Concordia University in Edmonton, a school much like this one, but associated with the Lutheran tradition, to give a presentation to their music students on the vital importance of music education in their lives. I thought in that context I should try to find a worthy introductory quote by none other than Martin Luther. And I found one which appropriately summarizes for me much of what has been my experience. So here's the quote. "Music is a lovely gift of God. It is the queen of all emotions of the heart. It is the art of the prophets that can calm the agitations of the soul. Nothing on earth has greater power than music to make the sad joyful, the joyful sad, the despondent courageous, to incline the arrogant to humility, and to lessen envy and hatred." As I said, Luther's words summarize succinctly and emotively what the profession of music and its gifted and generous teachers, including firstly my parents, but then teachers throughout my career, have given me. Having grown up in an immigrant family, Mennonite background, for which music was a central part of our lives, I recall the inspiration and very basic musical literacy gained from learning to sight read 4-part hymns, just like we did today. Thank you, Christine. With the soprano part first, and then graduating to all the other parts as my voice changed. My parents, so by the time I got to college, I was a baritone. My parents recognized the importance of music training and purchased an old Heinzmann upright and got me started on lessons at the piano at age 9. Ah, yes, the piano. With this early start at music lessons, as it happened, I became quite intensely interested in sports as well, and especially basketball. My folks had eventually settled on and purchased a farm in Arnold, BC, which is just east of Abbotsford, and in the hayloft of that 100-foot barn on that farm, we had enough room to create a half-court basketball court for all our school friends to gather. That interest, I have to admit, frequently superseded my piano training. I attended MEI in Clearbrook at a time when the school had a marvelous run of great basketball teams, eventually winning provincial championships and so on when I was in junior high already. I did continue piano off and on through those high school years, but already then most of my enjoyment in music making at MEI came through singing in choirs, with such inspiring leaders as C.D. Taves, Henry Wiebe, and Rudy Berg, who was here this evening. I am sure we can all reflect back on the influence of teachers in our lives, and for me, one of the most influential teachers in my high school years was my English teacher, Jake Taves, or JT as we called him. His passion for English drama, especially Shakespeare and poetry, awakened many inspiring directions for his students, something that has stayed with me my whole life. Another interest I had actually in high school was chemistry, believe it or not, due to the teaching of a Mr. Ed Andres, who was a marvelous science teacher. And I did for a while think about a science-oriented career. But there was a most important event in, I think it was grade 11, as I recall, that sold me on the idea that choral music would be a true passion for me to consider. The a cappella choir of MBBC, conducted by William Berg, was on tour and sang at Clearbrook Church, where I was a member. I'm quite sure the main item on that program was Bach's motet, Lobet den Herrn alle Heiden. Bill, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think that's the piece. And when I heard them sing that amazing work, it just seemed to me that all the Stainer crucifixions I had sung in the Clearbrook Church Choir, while worthy experiences, tended to fade into oblivion. That was the music, Bach was the music I wanted to sing and experience from the inside. As it happened, my dad had received an offer to become editor of the Mennonite here in Winnipeg, just as I was finishing high school. And so that circumstance clarified things for me. I was going to move to Winnipeg with my folks, attend MBBC, and study music. I had a number of amazing teachers at MBBC, and many of them are here tonight. I'm just so grateful. Irmgard Berg, my piano teacher, who was patient and long-suffering with my vapid piano technique. Victor Martins, John Martins, and Bill Berg, with whom I studied voice, and that marvelous theory teacher, Peter Clausen, who with his dry wit and understated teaching style could make even the most jaded music student actually enjoy Basil Horwood's The Basis of Harmony. But it was Bill and his brother-in-law Howard Dick, who also taught at MBBC for a short time, who were the central influence on my decision to follow conducting as a career choice. Under these two conductors, I had the opportunity to sing the major choral orchestral repertoire. The first year was the Brahms Requiem, and then the Bach Passions, and Haydn's Creation, and Mendelssohn Elijah, and that time for us, a very far-out piece, William Walton's Belshazzar's Feast. Oh my goodness. My good fortune has been to conduct all of these works in Edmonton, bringing back those incredible memories of initial discovery in that process. What most struck me about my experience at MBBC was the spirit of personal engagement and interest our faculty had in the welfare of their students. We're at the time a pretty small student body of just over 100 students, and many were involved in the music studies, benefiting greatly from the warmth and encouragement we received from a very dedicated and committed group of scholars and performers. For me, this clearly resulted in a career life moment for which I will remain forever grateful. As a music student, my main studies, even into my third year, were in piano, believe it or not, and a senior recital loomed on the horizon. The problem, though, as alluded to earlier, was my ridiculously poor technical facility, especially in the left hand. So on a fateful November day, at one of my piano lessons in the chapel, Bill joined Ermi, and it was clear that they had something in mind. They proposed to me an offer that I could simply not refuse. In place of a full piano recital, they would accept half recitals, one in voice and one in choral conducting, to fulfill that requirement. And I will never forget that day. And I'm deeply grateful to these two teachers, whose creative visions have influenced so many young students in their musical endeavors. So my voice recital was one of the Schumann Liederkreis cycles, and Irmgard played for me. And the conducting recital was a work of Bach, his Palm Sunday cantata, Himmelskönig sei willkommen. Reflecting on the amazing year after around 4 decades in this profession, the two Mennonite colleges here were unique, I think, in all of North America in supporting choral conducting as a major study area with the option of doing a conducting recital in one's senior undergraduate year, unheard of in any school that I know of in North America. This kind of study is normally reserved for graduate school programs. It would be very interesting, I think, to create a list of those who went on to a career in choral music that owed their career starts to the vision of these colleges and their musical mentors. And I include those at CMBC and especially Dr. George Wiebe. Thinking in broader terms, what an incredibly fertile time that was for those of us who had the extremely good fortune to learn from such luminaries as David Avert in theology, Herb Giesbrecht in English literature with all his red markings on papers, and Vern Ratzlaff in philosophy, and Harry Lowen in German. The list goes on. I realize my time is short, and so we'll just say a few things about what has happened for me since then. I just want to say one thing about conducting. You know, conducting is an instrument. It's a visual instrument. We can't make sound when we conduct. If we do, it's probably distracting. But our ears and our gestures influence everything that is heard. And it's an incredibly passionate exercise to teach that. And I'm so grateful I've had the chance to teach many students that craft. My time is short, and so I'll just say a few things about what has happened to me since then. I was able to continue making music here in Winnipeg through teaching at MBCI for 6 years, then was offered a one-year sabbatical replacement for Bill as he and Irmgard pursued for their further studies in the US. Grad studies for me followed at the University of Iowa with another pair of mentors I need to mention, Don Moses in conducting and Richard Blesch in choral literature. And since 1981, I've had the incredibly good fortune to pursue a career in choral music at the University of Alberta. In addition to the many amazing opportunities I've had to conduct choral music large and small in Edmonton, for me, without question, the most gratifying part of my time at U of A has been to mentor many master's and doctoral students in choral conducting, including, I might add, someone that's here today, Alison Pauls. And as I reflect on this journey, I remain most grateful for the experiences and inspiring teaching I had at this fine institution, CMU and its predecessors. Thank you.